In this video, you will be learning about Lewis structures. Let's begin with the basics. What are Lewis structures? Lewis structures are diagrams that show the bonding between atoms of a molecule and the lone pairs of electrons that may exist in the molecule. Now, how do you do a Lewis structure? Number one, you determine the number of valence electrons. Let's use NH3 as our example. Looking at the periodic table, you see that nitrogen has 5 valence electrons and that hydrogen has 1. Times 3 equals 8 total valence electrons. Now, you have to determine the central atom. If there's more than one atom, whichever one is more electronegative is the central atom. And since nitrogen is more electronegative than hydrogen, nitrogen will be our central atom, and then we'll just have the hydrogen surrounding it. Step 3, you arrange the electrons so that each contributes an electron to a single bond. So you use 2 electrons to represent a bond between 2 atoms. Each of these 2 are 2 electrons. Now we just use the rest of the electrons to fill in the octet. So since hydrogen only has space for 2, it has a full octet. So we use 6, but nitrogen does not have a full octet, so we'll use the last 2 electrons to make a lone pair so that nitrogen has a full octet. Now, let's use NH4+ using the same guide, except this time we are dealing with a charged molecule, in this instance a +1 charge. So when we count our valence electrons, we have to take into consideration the charge of the molecule. So we are going to subtract 1 valence electrons to account for the positive charge. So instead of 9, you have 8 valence electrons. And this situation would be the same for any other charged molecule. If you had carbonate, you would be adding 2 electrons to account for the -2 charge. So the Lewis structure for NH4 would be as follows. Let's do another example. CO2. Carbon has 4 valence electrons and oxygen has 6 times 2 equals 12, and that plus the 4 is 16 valence electrons. Now we determine that C is the central atom because there are 2 oxygens and no 2 molecules can be the central atom. So we put C into the center, O's on either side, and we connect it with a single bond. Now let's use the rest of the electrons to fill the octets. Let's start with the outer molecules first. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Now both oxygens have a full octet, but we notice that C, the carbon atom, does not have a full octet. Now to fix that, we are going to move 2 electron pairs into what's called a double bond. And a double bond is the same as a single bond, except now it consists of 4 atoms shared between the 2 molecules. So the resulting structure would look like this. Now we have 4 here, which is 8, so now we must use the other 8 to fill the octet for the oxygens. And now both the oxygens and the carbon atom have a full octet, and that's how you do Lewis structures.